You're listening to part 2 of my interview with Dr. Beyhan Farhadi.
And how do you sustain your passion, or how have you sustained your passion for teaching in the years that you were teaching?
I don't know, I feel like teenage angst still informs all my things. So when I teach, I'm also really curious. So I do love, like, exploring a text with people and, you know, in say, English context. But even in a undergrad context, I do enjoy that piece of it, the learning. But a lot of it is just driven, like, political change. I want systems to change. I don't accept no for an answer. There are lots of problems that are systemic that can be changed that are not changing because people are unwilling to fulfill their responsibilities because it's easier for them not to do so. It is less risky. And I have that teenage idealism still, that angsty of like, I see it's wrong, let's change it. Like, it's that simple. Why don't we change it? We can totally draw up new paperwork for this thing. Like, it's doesn't require us upending things. Let's, at least talk about it.
There can be change.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I know that a PhD is a very long and grueling process, and a lot of people drop out, high attrition rate.
Yeah.
How did you sustain yourself and your passion for that while you were doing that?
Money.
No,
I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, no.
Like,
we are unapologetically into money on this podcast.
I would not have, if I didn't have my partner working and paying for my ass to do all this work, it would not have gotten done. No way. My colleagues, I know they're working to taking on extra stuff because they have to get paid. And then the writing gets deferred. And even if they're doing as much work as I am, to have the stress of not knowing what are you going to be doing next year for financially, that's tough.
Yeah. And you knew you had teaching as something.
Yeah, totally. What a privilege, right?
Yeah.
Like, I always had teaching waiting for me. I could afford to fail, which means I could afford to take a risk. And that isn't it a terrible way, like the capitalism 101? Like, right? Like, you get reward from the risk you take, but you can only take risk with capital.
Mm-hmm.
And so here I am walking in with, like, a shitload of capital, which is both, like, financial and social, because I've also worked and have contacts that allow me to sort of get ahead with my research. And also I've had space from the academy. Like, I taught for almost, like, I was gone for 5, 6, 7 years between my degrees, which is not the same story as my colleagues. And so I was coming in there with a confidence that was derived from my professional life.
Achievements.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I always recommend when people want to do grad school, just, like, wait a couple years. Like, just, you need perspective so that thing isn't the center of your life. You need to be doing something, whatever that thing is, for a little bit, even for a year, before you go back. Otherwise, that straight going from beginning to end, many people succeed, many people are amazing, but there's still something to be gained from the perspective of that break.
And I think also having an identity that's something other than student.
Always.
Being able to have confidence in that identity and then bringing that identity into the classroom is so different from just being a student your whole life.
Absolutely. And I was never ever wrapped up in being a PhD student. Really wasn't. If I knew I could afford to say screw it and then leave the next day. But yeah, it's I think those are the things. I was lucky.
Yeah.
And I know not everybody gets through it. And so what that means is I have a responsibility, right? Like, what it means is that I need to fulfill whatever this has given me, and I need to open doors, and I need to support people, and I need to make sure people who need to get through get through.
And what I'm also hearing you say when you recommend taking a break is so that it isn't the only thing that you have going for you, is making it so that your further education, your grad school, is supplementing your career rather than making it the only pillar that your career stands on.
Yeah.
That's what
Which
I'm
is super scary. And it puts so much pressure.
Puts a lot of pressure on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
A lot of pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot though. Just to have everything riding on achieving that degree.
And in some ways I did, because my opportunity cost was a lot.
Yes.
And so, you know, we could have had a second house by now, like if I were teaching full time. But so for me, it was like, as a mother and a partner, for me to go into grad school, I can't turn around and say, like, I don't, like, for me, it was like, I'm taking time away from my children. I'm taking time away from my partner. I'm taking time away from, like, fulfilling those responsibilities. So it is often said, I see it too, that the most, you know, there's a saying, if you want to get something done, give it to someone who's busy.
Yeah.
You know, I do think that's kind of what happens with mothers. I've seen mothers in the academy, and they get it done. Right? Because
they know how to do shit.
Like, also, like, you just don't have, we just don't have time to do.
Mull over it.
Yeah, I guess, like, the processing, right? Like, and it's a luxury sometimes, I feel, to be able to experience, not to discredit the experience of writer's block, but I'm like, I gotta write something. Yeah. I gotta write something terrible. I still gotta write something. Like, I can't wait until inspiration hits, because I've gotta finish this. So I'm gonna write this terrible thing, and I'm gonna submit this terrible thing. And that's it, because I have to do it, because I need to go and, like, pick up my kids from school, and I only have, like, a half an hour. And if I don't do this now,
it'll never get
done. Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about money.
Yeah.
So often we're told that it's materialistic to want money, to like money, which I think is just rich people telling poor people and middle class people that they shouldn't want what
money's great.
They have. Yeah.
Yeah.
What is your relationship with money? Has it changed over the years? Is it changing?
Yeah, totally. It's a great question, because...
Oh, I love it when people tell me my questions.
Well, I mean, we had an argument yesterday, because I decided I was going to buy a pair of shoes for $250. No, $280. It was the Adidas Booster. Okay. And it was, you know...
You're a hype beast.
I am, right? I am actually hype for Adidas. The thing is, I'm pretty minimalist. Like, I'm not attached to this house. I don't want to move into a bigger place. I don't care about, you know, whether we're moving next year to somewhere else. So I don't have a relationship to property, I guess, is one thing. But I really like money, and I like being able to spend money on things and not have to think about it.
Not to stress about,
can
I do this?
And I love being able to, like, if someone needs something, here, you know, like, that's such a powerful feeling, because I feel like I can it opens up confidence for me. And I love, for me, especially with, like, rich white folks who are sitting on tons of cash, and me being like, nah, I'm good. Like, I don't need it. I can do the things I want to do without your money.
Like, fuck you, money.
It's so good. Like, that feels really, really good. Like, my mom's family is really, really rich, but she was ejected from that family, so she's, you know, been on disability for a long time and living on, like, poverty income since we came to Toronto when I was in grade 6. And so I, like, lived in, like, what was poverty. I mean, my dad, it was like this. So my relationship with class is actually quite, you know, complex. Like, I didn't find out until, I don't know, 2 months ago that my dad was a university educated guy. I had no idea. Explains a lot.
How did you find out?
My sister told me.
Oh.
Because I was trying to get the correct spelling of her name. And when I looked it up, I only saw, like, my dad's name. And I didn't speak Turkish, so I just said, like, is this how you spell your name? She goes, no, but that's weird that dad's on, like, a chemical engineer thing. I'm like, what are you talking about? And then that's when she told me.
Yeah,
so I had this little crisis, because I was like, oh, my dad was like working class. He came as an immigrant and worked in a taxi.
But that makes so much sense, and that is the story of
I
so
know,
many
but I had
folks.
no idea. So it's at this moment of like, I thought, and so I had my identity was sort of in this, this narrative. But then it makes sense, like, how I was trained, like, my dad's family. My dad's family trained me to, how to hold my fork and how, like, all of these kinds of middle-class competencies.
Yeah.
But so I saw money on my mom's side, but I never could touch it. So I could, like, visit my rich family, wear my rich cousin's clothes, and then, like, come home and, like, jack something from Shoppers Drug Mart because, like, I couldn't afford it, or, like, eat chips for lunch. So now that I have money, with these shoes, it's like, there's also gender wrapped up in it because I really I've never lived alone. I've been living with my partner forever, and we've been really good. We're good communicators, and we don't tend to have any issues with money. But he does have this, because he arrived as a refugee, and so he has a relationship to money that's very different. And so for him, it doesn't matter how much money he's making. He's like, you're spending that money.
It's too much. It's always
and
too
I was
much.
like, why do you gotta rob me? Like, part of this money is to make me feel good about having spent it. Like, now I'm sitting here going, should I even put the shoes on? And I was legit angry for 2 days, and I'm like, this is also like total, like, this is totally gendered. And I'm like, how much money do I have to make before I get to, like, unapologetically spend my money?
On yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I also know I can't just, like, indiscriminately do that because I'm in a partnership with family obligations. So it's so confusing. Like, I like money a lot. And then I also know that, like, I also don't want, I am socialist. So I want to be taxed. I want the money that I earn to be, redistributed collectively. And so but I don't think it's enough to sort of like moderately advocate for that. Like, I think that's because the money that I've earned has been off this kind of like economic infrastructure that's like dispossessed so many people. So it is like, it's, I think someone I respect highly is somehow put it like, capitalism isn't going away. You got to fight it, but you can't feel guilty about it. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm taking that one in.
Yeah.
You can't feel guilty about it while you're fighting it. Yeah, because you have to exist within the system.
So, like, you enjoy pleasures and also give and not feel guilty and feel responsible. Like, you can feel guilty.
Doing your best.
You can feel responsible and not feel guilty. Like, I think that's the thing.
Yeah, okay.
So I feel super, super, super responsible, but I don't feel guilty about it.
Yeah.
And I also know that there are a lot of people who are whose career or identities wrapped around anti-capitalist activity. And part of that emerges from being in a precarious state. But I also know that there's nothing that's romantic about being poor, and there's nothing that is inherently good about people in poverty want money. Like, I think that, I mean, nobody is choosing to sort of have to struggle. And so that's why there is this kind of like classist thing. Like, yeah, if you're earning like $24,000 a year and you want to spend, $250 on a pair of shoes, yeah, okay.
It's going to make you feel
Then
good.
that's what you do. Like, there's as in no judgment, right? Like, there's nothing that should preclude somebody from spending whatever money that they want on the things that make them feel good.
First of all,
yeah,
they earned it. They can do what they want with it.
Yeah.
I also think, one, it's a very difficult thing to do for most people to be both anti-capitalist and pro-money. But I think the way to understand that is, there's a saying, being hungry yourself isn't going to feed someone else.
Yeah.
So being poor yourself isn't going to help other people escape from poverty.
Yeah.
So if you can lift yourself up, lift up other people with you.
And the anti-capitalist project is a structural project. It's not an individual project. And I think that to make this very, and then to me, I'm like, if to make it about how people recycle, or how people, or what they spend their money on, and consumer practices is important to have, like, as holding ourselves accountable as individuals. But on a kind of structural level, it's not. I'm sort of here going, well, we have a huge industry of, like, mining and banking and extraction and all kinds of industries that are dispossessing on a structural level huge communities, and those are things that we need to be speaking out about.
Yeah. And you mentioned earlier that it's a cliche that getting a job is about who you know, but we all know that it's a cliche because it's true.
Yeah.
In your years of experience, what are some networking tips, or maybe the networking tip that you've picked up along the way?
Never engage with somebody because you hope to acquire contact.
Yeah.
Like, always want to know more about the people in front of you. And that authenticity is rare. And that, to me, is, like, the magic of it.
I think so, too. I agree with you 100% there.
Yeah.
I have sort of this Instagram friend, Nisha Modi. She's a writer.
Yeah.
And our connection came about just because I commented on her story. She was eating pomegranates, and I just commented, like, oh, I love pomegranates. And we just got into talking, and I never expected or wanted anything from her. And it happened, and we've collaborated on Instagram. Actually, we did a live about money.
Nice.
And how to be anti-capitalist but pro-money.
Oh.
And I love that relationship.
Yeah.
And that's how most of my best connections have been formed. Like, we met at a party.
Yes.
Literally.
Yes. And I will do a lot for people that I care about, and little for people who might leverage me a particular way.
Yeah.
Networks are not about someone who's going to, like, no one can get you a job. Like, that's the other thing too. No one can get you a job. What they can do is they can vouch for you, and they can put in a good word for you, and that goes a long way. So when you're looking at candidates for a position, or, like, they'll see something that might work for you and forward that to you. Or if there is an opening, they'll think of you and they'll send it to you. But no one can make that job happen. So part of it is, like, if you just, like, also being just communicative about where you're at. So if people know, the one thing I see is people are looking for positions and then no one's telling anyone about it. And people who want to help you can't.
That's the weird thing about our society. There is enough food, but people are hungry. There are jobs that are open, and there are, like, unemployed people who would be perfect. Mm-hmm. So there's just, it's not being funneled. Nothing is being funneled correctly. Yeah. I'm accessing my inner teenager.
Yeah.
Like, why isn't it working?
Yes.
Like, it all should work.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. But that, I 100% agree with you on that there. That just... Because the word networking always made me feel very uneasy, because to me it always had a very sleazy connotation. Yeah, but I just think, like, if you just think of it as community building and making a connection as opposed to making a contact, it'll take you further.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Do you code switch? Is there
all the time?
Is there, like, high school teacher Beyhan
100%.
And, like,
100%.
Yeah.
Especially, like, moving from, like, I grew up in Malvern and Flemington Park, which were two areas where street meant something. And so I have a edge about me. I'm the kind of person that'll, like, you know, in my 20s, I would take off my shoes to fight, you know, like that kind of street. There's a way that I really get along with people with that grit. And in high school, if I speak with that grit, I become racialized. I have had to have that discussion actually with a particular student who, when I get annoyed, he says I almost deliver my discipline like I'm rapping because of the way that the pace of my delivery. And I'm like, all right, well, I know I'm totally being myself in that moment, and I need to scale back my way of speaking and become whiter.
Yeah.
And so
as an educator.
Yeah. And then I did explain code switching to students because I'm teaching a novel called A Lesson Before Dying. And I spoke about what it means to, I had to talk about, it's African American vernacular English. And I said, this is what you refer to as ghetto, and that's racial logic. So we need to step it back. And so I said that to students, and then I was playing the recording of the book, which was set in Louisiana in the 1940s. And so the characters were speaking like African Americans in the 1940s in the South. And so he was repeating it. And I stopped it and I said, this is what I'm talking about. I said, this is not appropriate.
It's not for mockery.
Yeah.
It's someone's speech.
And it was interesting because the whole class turned to him and was like, she just said this, you know?
Yeah,
didn't you pick it up? Yeah.
You just said this 5 seconds
Exactly.
ago.
So I do. And I said to him, you do that with me too. He mocks me sometimes when I'm speaking, and it might not be when I'm disciplining. It's just anytime I switch codes, he points it out and mocks it, and I have to. And I'm like, he's from Iran, so I think he identifies with me culturally because my last name is Iranian, even though I'm not Iranian. So he feels a level of comfort with me. Yeah. And of course, there's so much anti-Black racism in communities of color. So it's all of those things, and code switching and what that means. Can I even claim codes anymore? Where can I use codes? It's only people who have known me a long time who recognize, who recognize that recognize when I'm throwing something down. You know, it's usually when I am angry.
I was gonna say that because I found that for me as well. It's in points of high emotion.
Totally. That
I forget to speak white.
Yeah.
And I get back in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because anger is also racialized.
Yeah, anger is racialized, correct. And I think I've had people point out, oh, you sound like a brown auntie when you get angry, and I'm like, well, yeah, because the first brown woman I knew who ever got angry at me was my mom. Yeah. Because moms get angry at you when you do stupid things that kids do. Yeah. Yeah. And that is a whole conversation. We have codes and
So yes.
Yeah.
Hot tip. Talk whiter.
Talk whiter. It's weird though, because on the podcast, I know I'm using my white voice, but I literally I can't not use it. Yeah. It's weird.
Because you need to get that money. And you need to be consumable.
Because I know that I'm in one setting and that's...
Yes.
Yeah, but as soon as I get home and as soon as this mic's off, I'm someone else. Yeah. It's really weird. And then sometimes it short circuits and you... if you're in a high emotion and it just... It turns off. Yes. Yeah. Can you tell me, how do you identify and how does your identity play into your work? And you spoke to this a little bit earlier as well.
I am a queer racialized woman, but I also experience a significant degree of white privilege because of my lighter skin. So I'm exoticized in that way, which puts me in a liminal space racially. I had access to a lot of spaces, but never that much access. Because how I look is ambiguous, but culturally I'm ambiguous as well, which means I just don't connect to a lot. which really just goes back to being queer. So I'm not just sexually queer, I'm politically and culturally queer. I'm just not
fitting in a category.
Yeah.
Beigeness is fluidity. As a beige person, I can attest to that.
Yeah, it is. And that's a blessing and a curse, because I can, get in the door to a lot of spaces and never maybe I never feel comfortable enough to stay there.
Yeah. Or maybe, this is speaking from my own experience, is like not feeling comfortable to show all of it or all of me.
Because it's not all going to be accepted.
It's not all going to be safe.
Yeah.
It's not safe to show everything. And that's why we code switch.
Yeah.
Because only certain people and only certain places have the privilege to access those parts of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Survival.
Can you tell me about a time that a personal failure turned out to be a blessing in disguise? Or a happy accident?
That's I talk so much about failure. When I fail at teaching, I learn so much. Often it's something that's imperceptible to students. They don't even know I did it, but I did, and I might have said something that was biased, even political. I try really hard to when I say bias, I mean I try not to comment on. I try to stay nonpartisan, but I also make my values very clear so that they understand what I'm invested in ideologically without telling them how that interprets into a political space. So I don't need to tell them I'm anti-capitalist, but I can certainly tell them that capitalism has limitations.
I see.
I don't need to tell them that I am socialist, but I can tell them that it's important to redistribute resources. So those are the
Gotcha.
Yeah. Because just making sure that students have space to see other perspectives. I don't need to represent capitalism. They live it. They breathe it. This is all of it. So I do need to counter some of that in my pedagogy. I don't need students to only I try to also create some gray space politically, because there's actually a lot there aren't neat boundaries around a lot of the things that they're thinking about, and so I think my sort of not having my politics bleed into my classroom, and when I say all of it's political, but when I say my own identity, my political identity is separate from my pedagogical identity, if that makes sense. These are I'm really, really radical, but I don't expect all my students to be radical. But I do want them exposed to radical thought.
And that's what you mean by exposing the gray area.
Yeah.
Showing them the spectrum.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I get that. What do you do outside of work? So you did say you work out, go to therapy. What are you...
I spend time with friends. Yeah. I write, read.
What are you reading right now?
Stuff for school. It's really unimpressive. Sorry. I am reading. What am I reading? Yeah, I can't remember what I'm reading because I use start books and I never finish them.
What's your self-care?
Yeah, the therapy and the physical exercise.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
How does because you mentioned therapy makes you feel like you have access to your emotions and that you're not internalizing it. How does exercise make you feel, or what does exercise do for you?
Keep me alive. Honestly, I feel stronger. I get sick less. I have energy. It is a habit that allows me to stay disciplined, actually. So when the writing, in terms of getting my writing done, I remember when I started writing in June of 2018, probably it was, I said I'm doing a chapter a month, but I can't get this done unless I'm working at this time. And I can't start working at this time unless my body's not going to fail on me.
Really?
And I need to, and I need to, so every day I would it almost became my ritual to be there at 6, but not always in the best way, right? Like it was me trying to control something that was out of my control sometimes, which was that life happens and you can't always sit down and do the work you need to do. And for me, going to work out was a way of gaining some control over that and going, at least if I worked out, like I could do some of this.
You did one thing, so you can do the rest of the things you can do.
Yeah.
Or that you need to do today.
Yeah.
Because you already did one thing.
Yes.
Yes. And it gives you momentum for the rest of your day.
And that's what's like this week too. I woke up this morning and I like really don't want to go. I'm like, but if you don't go, you're going to be a loser. You're going to not get through this week. This is going to be a terrible week. It's the week before the holidays. You got a lot of stuff to do. Get up and just go.
What exactly do you do? Is it mostly cardio?
It's high intensity training, so it's actually a mix of cardio and weight training.
Cool.
Yeah.
Do you find that it clears your mind so that you're able to write?
Yes. Yeah, it gets me focused for sure.
Nice. What is your least favorite piece of common career advice?
Work hard.
Oh, that's why I started this podcast. Is because
don't work hard. God. Actually, don't work hard. Work smart.
Work smart. Yeah.
Because really, I even I'm trying to tell students that, they're like, one student's like, I want to do, it was this, really this exercise that was really focusing on oral communication. And I had a piece of it was the media. This is for the Othello one. And one of my students said, all right, I've got this idea. And I had them do a proposal. She's like, I've got this idea. I'm going to do like an animation, like Lego animation, like all these shots. I'm like, how are you? I'm really like TikTok, like 15 seconds, 15 seconds, 15 seconds, 15 seconds. 60 seconds is the max. Focusing on your oral communication, delivery of your lines. I'm like, you don't need to do this. But he's like, oh, miss, but like I'm like, oh, we're working smarter, right? Because you've got a whole bunch of other stuff you need to do in school. This cannot be the thing that's taking up all of your time because you need to do well all the things. So you don't need to do the maximum. You need to do the minimum to get you the grade you want. And if that grade's an 80 or 90, like it's not worth the struggle from 90 to 100 to get, like it's not worth it. It's not worth your time. So I like
strategizing.
Yeah, and you know what? He listened to me and he didn't compromise his grade at all. So part of it is just that, like you don't need to. People think you have to put in all of these extra hours, and there's always that work dynamic where you've got that one person who's working 15 hours. I'm like, that person is not looked upon as being a smart person. That person is going, why are you spending that much time at work? Like, why can't you just do the work you're supposed to do in the time that you have?
Yeah. Agreed. And the reason I started this podcast was because I was so sick and tired of listening to other podcasts or other career advice givers being like, yeah, work hard. I'm like, first of all, hard work is not recognized. No.
You have to brand it. You have to put it out there on a silver platter.
Branding is recognized. Yeah. Cleverness is recognized.
Yes.
So let's be clever.
Yes. And tell people what you're doing.
Yeah.
Tell people what you're doing, because you know what, they don't know.
Yeah.
And unless they know, they actually don't think you're working very hard.
Yeah, that's a good one too. Tell people what you're doing.
Yeah.
Tell your colleagues, tell your boss, tell your supervisor. Yeah.
Get it
tell
out
your
there.
manager.
Yeah.
Tell them what you're doing. But don't work so hard to the point of burnout.
No.
Because you're gonna burn out. Yeah. you're gonna burn out. What is your favorite piece of common career advice?
Oh, I mean, it's who you know. It's so true.
Yeah.
Because it's so true. And I like it when people say it's who you know, because it really does not make this about this meritocracy.
It's honest.
Yeah, I'm like, it is who you know. Thank you for saying it, because I really felt like it was me. But really, it's you. So why don't you open some doors?
It's acknowledging the truth of what it is.
Like, open doors. That's another piece of, like, open doors.
Yeah.
If you're in a door, open it for someone else. You have a responsibility. Don't shut it behind you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think it's more important to quote-unquote follow your passion or be realistic when choosing a major or a career? Because I think a lot, something that's thrown around quite frequently is follow your passion, but a lot of people don't know what that means or they don't know how to do it. Is that even important?
Why not both? Like, what do you mean passion? And the part is like,
I don't even know what that means.
All passion dies. Like, when you have to do passion as a routine, it dies. So that's overrated. And then practicality is overrated because I don't think everything that's practical is miserable. There's a lot of, like, comfort and joy in routine.
Stability.
Serve. Whatever it is you're doing, find some way to serve.
Yeah. What if you don't have a passion, or what if you don't know what you're supposed to be doing? Yeah.
See a therapist.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a motivation issue, isn't it?
Could be, yeah.
My understanding is motivation is not about, like, your will. It's about your relationship to your history.
Can you unpack that?
I was told by someone who went to therapy that a lot of the issues around motivation requires unpacking the relationship that you have to your parents and success and the messages you received when you were younger, your confidence, what you feel you can do. There's just so much that, and in that unpacking, it's not like all of a sudden you find motivation, but you get at least some clarity. Mm-hmm. Like, there's something, like, a motivation's about will, and, like, to get up and want to do something every day requires purpose. And purpose requires clarity. So I think that clarity can't come without some introspection.
Like that. So if you don't know what you're supposed to be doing, look inward.
Yeah.
Introspect.
Yeah.
You'll get the answers there.
Or, like, not.
Or not.
And that's okay. You don't have to feel bad about that.
Honestly, like,
it takes years.
What I have quote unquote been preaching, or been saying at least on the blog, is it's okay to just do random things until you land somewhere that feels right.
Yes. That's a really good piece of advice.
Because I'm doing random things, and this is my documentation of all the random things that I'm doing.
Yeah.
All right. What is your advice to recent graduates?
The time that you think has passed is a blink. And please take the time to enjoy the minute between now and when you find the thing you're going to find, because you will find it.
And you're going to have to do it for 40 years.
Yeah. Oh, you know, but you just, like, you have to be an adult, really. I mean, it's like...
You have responsibility.
Yeah, so it's a hard thing to say, because I know that, you know, my sister is 22, I think. And she's... As soon as she graduated, the question's like, what do I do? And she did some traveling, and that was nice. And she's found a kind of part-time gig, and that'll probably transition to something full-time. But it seems like she's enjoying more this time that she has, because she has seen the part-time, what that part-time creep has done to her responsibilities. It's like, oh, right, I got to wake up in the morning to, like, go to work. Oh, right, it's not the same as my undergrad where I could, sleep in on Friday mornings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think there's something nice about the routine that one can begin to appreciate. And I think capitalism makes it very hard for us to enjoy the minute between now and then.
Yeah. So resist.
There's resistance to rest.
Yeah.
And what do you think the next steps will be for yourself? I know you want to go into the postdoc sphere.
Yeah. I have no control.
No control.
So I have to let go.
And is there anything that you want to say before we wrap up? Anything you feel we did not get into?
No, thank you. You had a very thorough list of questions.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Everyone who I've interviewed so far has been like, this is so goddamn thorough.
Yeah, it's very thorough.
And, like, I wanted to pick interview questions that weren't, like, what is it like to be a woman in your field? Because
that comes out anyway, though.
It comes out anyway, so I know I don't need to ask
Good
that.
interview questions don't need you to spell it out. It gets read in the narrative.
Yeah. So, this question list took me months.
Really?
It was like March to October, not working on it every day kind of thing, but building on that. It took like 6 months to just build.
It's hard to
and
build.
Like, what do I want to know about people?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
And I'm so glad that it is a privilege to have someone's time, and I'm so glad that
I'm so happy to do it.
You gave me your time and gave us
May it impact someone somewhere. It's something. That's all you can ever hope for.
Yeah, I really hope that it has a snowball effect, and thank you to those listening. I'll see you in the next episode.